Hi, welcome back. This practice today is yin yoga for anxiety. And before we get started, and you by no means have to go out and get something, but I do want to introduce this idea, if you aren't already doing it in your yin practice, this idea of inviting relaxing scents, smells into your practice. So I happen to have some orange oil right here, and you could use oil in a diffuser or put oil, on your temples and wrists. You could do incense, scented candles, anything that helps you, anything you like to smell that just that will be a little bit more grounding. It's easier to be more present when we awaken the senses. So by no means do you need to stop the video and go out and get oils or anything like that. It's just something to think about kind of for the long term of your yin practice. So we'll go ahead and get started. We won't need really any props, anything new. A pillow. I'm using just a good old regular pillow from my bed. And then a couple of blankets. You can get away with blocks or books or couch cushions, whatever you have on hand, you can use, turn it into a prop for yin. So we'll go ahead and start. So I'm just gonna sit on this pillow because it just makes it a little nicer to stay seated for longer here while we center. All right, so the hardest part is over. Getting here is always the challenging part. Now we get to receive our practice. So if you are feeling a little bit anxious, I recommend putting one hand, maybe your left hand over the heart, right hand over your navel, and then you can either close your eyes or soften your gaze. We'll take a few moments to breathe here, inhaling in through your nose, exhaling out through pursed lips, like you're exhaling on hot soup. So this little kind of looks like you're whistling, but we're not whistling. Inhale again, in through your nose. Exhale out through your lips. We'll take 4 more breaths just like that, and see if you can observe that there's kind of this sound when you exhale out through your lips, kind of like this, almost like a whoosh or a wave. Let's take 3 more. And we'll release our hands to the ground and we'll bow to the earth. You'll take your hands down and just take a moment to drop your head and just kind of noticing and recognizing that the earth is supporting us. It is holding us up. It is this unconditional support. And then we'll slowly draw ourselves up. So we are about to get into our first pose, but we'll talk about a little bit of the kind of the energetics of anxiety, perhaps, at least through the lens of yoga. So in yoga, you have certain, you have upward currents, you have downward currents, you have kind of this air element, you have fire elements, earth, water, different elements, right? And if you can imagine, usually, at least for myself, when we're experiencing anxiety, it's just there's a lot going on in our head, right? It's like we can't get out of our mind. And so you can think of that as sort of this upward energy is going up, 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 and we don't know where the ground is, right? And then on top of that, you can also look at it from an elemental perspective of kind of this air, ether. It's a lot of mental activity is represented, at least in yoga, kind of a lot of air and ether. So today's yin practice is about getting the energy down and bringing in other elements like water and earth to sort of balance out all the other, the air. All right, so we're going to start with downward wind pose. Apanasana, we do this one a lot together. So you'll lie on your back, you're going to have your head perhaps on that pillow, and you'll just be flat on your mat. And we'll take a moment to relax our back into the support of the floor and the support of the ground. Notice your body starting to widen and relax into the floor. And see if you can allow your tailbone to become heavy, your sacrum spread wide against your mat. And we'll bend the knees into the chest. You can give them a little squeeze and rock side to side. We'll come back to center and you'll cup each palm over each kneecap and the fingers will point in the direction of the toes. We're going to be mindful to keep our feet relaxed and our legs relaxed. You'll let your knees tilt away. The arms will straighten as you inhale. And on your exhale, pull the knees into your chest. Elbows are nice and wide. And we'll continue that. Inhaling, knees tilt away. And exhale, elbows wide, knees draw in. So throughout our practice today, at any point you feel a little disconnected from your breath or a little maybe impatient while we're in poses, which is totally normal to feel impatient. You can utilize that breath that we practice in our centering. The inhale in through the nose, exhale out through the lips like you're exhaling out through a straw. Especially in the beginning, if you're noticing a lot of resistance today, I completely understand, and we'll just take it one breath at a time today. So the next time you fold your knees into your chest, we're going to take a brief twist. You're going to let both of the knees from into the chest, and both of the knees fall to the left, and you'll open your arms out like the letter T. Just for a moment, we'll be here for 3 breaths. And if you feel the resistance, remember that you chose to take time for yourself today to practice yin for a reason. And so just reminding that yourself that reason from time to time can be also really grounding to stay in our bodies, stay in our practice. Let's take one more breath here. Inhale. And as you exhale, wrap your navel to the right. We'll roll to our back again. Knees are back into the chest. And then we'll let both knees fall over to the left and then open out. We'll be here just very briefly. Sometimes we take this pose for a longer stint of time, but we're just checking in how the spine feels for the next 3 breaths. Take a full breath in, and then as you exhale, we'll return to our back again. You can roll all the way over to one side and then press yourself up. All right, so another way to get that energy moving down, there's a lot of different ways, but we're going to explore a few different forward folds today that can be very soothing and calming to the nervous system and to the body. So we're going to start with a single leg forward fold. So you can either sit directly on your mat or maybe use a blanket or pillow and sit on that prop if it helps you have your tallest spine here. And so we have our left leg out, and then you're going to bend your right knee and bring the right sole of your foot to the left inner thigh. And you can certainly use a prop next. We are going to fold over our straight leg. But before we fully get into the pose, let's sit up tall, twist a little bit in the direction of our straight leg. So the torso will twist a little bit to your left. And then you'll lean forward to the front of your sitting bones. Spine is long. Take an inhale. And then on your exhale, we'll just start to crawl our fingertips away from us and softly round the body over that straight leg. And so this might be just where you stay. You know, sometimes the simpler, the better. Especially if you don't want to be bothered with decisions today, maybe just do a prop-free yin class, which every yin pose you can have props or not here. So your palms can face up, head pours out of your spine. Or if you want to use props as a support system, as a way to feel more supported in your environment, you can take whatever prop you have and stuff it under your torso as you fold forward. And so we'll be here for about a minute, maybe a little bit longer than a minute. So you can really take your time and settle in. If you feel like you have bitten off more than you can chew, feels like a bit of a strain to be here, that's always an indication to come out of this pose a little bit. So you would use your hands, press away from the floor, and just stay where you are and breathe until your body's ready to release, and only then you might go deeper into the pose. So yeah, we don't need too much sensation. We need just a medium amount. So what I love about yin is it doesn't have to be overly stimulating at all. It can just be just that medium amount. Let's see if you can check in with your upper body for a moment. Notice if the upper body is clenching or engaging. Can you let pieces of your body that are tense, can you let them start to get the memo to soften? So maybe that's first unwinding the jaw, moving the jaw around, parting the back teeth, maybe yawning. And then once you relax that jaw, then you might notice the back of your neck feels tense, maybe shaking your head a little bit. If you're noticing that neck release, maybe now you're noticing the tops of the shoulders a bit guarded and armored. You might just kind of move your shoulders around, kind of shaking off some of that extra armor that we don't need. We'll be here for 10 more breaths. then we'll just very slowly guide our hands back near our body and press into the floor, roll back up through the spine, and you can set your prop over to the side. You can take a moment, lean back on your hands. You can stay back with both legs long. I'm going to offer a reverse tabletop as a way to sort of reset from this. So for a reverse tabletop, you'll bend your knees, plant your feet on the floor. Your hands are slightly behind you, and you can have your fingertips either pointing towards your hips, or maybe your fingertips both right and left sets face either side of the room, whatever's better on your wrist. You could stay here, lift up, or you could push up into a reverse tabletop. We'll take 3 breaths here. And then we'll lower back down and we'll do the other side. So I'm going to turn the opposite direction. So we have the right leg just straight out and the sole of the left foot to the right inner thigh. And then we'll take our frontal hip bones and turn not only our hips, but really our whole torso is going to turn towards that right leg. And then you'll sit up tall and you have choices. And always remember in yin you have choices. You have choices to come out early and rest. You have choices to go deeper. You have choices to adjust how you prop yourself. So don't ever feel like you aren't liberated in that way. And then we'll lift up nice and tall and round in. And that's why I love yoga in general. Like all the different yogas are a reminder that we have choices. So as you choose your adventure here, make sure you're honoring your needs. It's not too much of a stretch. It's not too much sensation. You can still breathe and relax into this shape. About 10 more breaths here. See if you can soften even more into the ground, into your support. Keep our head relaxed, neck relaxed, and slowly stack the spine back up as you're ready. And then you can lean back on your hands, whatever you might choose to do what you did before, you could stay here, or you can take that reverse tabletop where your hands are behind you, knees are bent, feet are flat on the floor, push into the hands and feet, lift the hips, and we'll take a few breaths here. Last inhale, and then as you exhale, we'll come back. So we're gonna lie on our belly next, which is kind of my favorite thing to do when I have anxiety, is just feeling the belly against the belly of the earth. And you can stack your hands one on top of the other, elbows bent wide, and rest your head on those hands. See if you can breathe down into your belly, right at that navel center. And can you watch your belly expand into the ground? And as you exhale, watch your body just become heavy against the floor. And if you're feeling like it's hard to connect there or there's resistance, can you just be curious about that without judging your ability to breathe into your belly? Just notice where you're at today. And you can certainly stay here. We are going to progress into Sphinx pose next. So if there's any low back irritations, this might be the best option, just to stay where you are. Otherwise, we are going to work on opening the chest, and this pose will create some healthy compression in the joints and the low back in particular. So we'll take our elbows and forearms onto the ground. You can have your elbows just in front of your shoulder line, or you could bring your elbows even more forward on your mat. That'll decompress. That'll make it less intense on the low back here. And then we'll tuck all 10 toes under and wiggle the fleshy part of our thighs back, so you're getting a little more room in the front of the hips, and then untuck your toes. So for this pose, you are active in the arms and in the spine, the base of the skull's drifting up to the sky. Meanwhile, your belly's heavy, your hips and glutes are relaxing down into the floor. And if you are a person who might store a lot of stress in your belly, a lot of kind of tension there, this is a great one for letting all that stress in the belly, kind of let that stress feeling kind of melt down into your mat, like the earth is dissolving it or pulling it from you. So we'll take 5 more breaths here. Take a deep breath together. Inhale fully. And then as you exhale, you can separate your elbows wide, come all the way back down to your belly, rest your head on stacked hands. You can either pause, or if there's some tension lingering in your low back and you want to work it out, you can bend your knees and point your toes up to the ceiling and just do a little windshield wiper. So for this next pose, if you are on a hard surface like I am, or there's hard surface off your mat, you can find a blanket or a pillow to pad the inseam of your left leg. So with that being said, I'm going to use my pillow and I'm just going to put it just slightly off my mat. Now it looks bulky, but it's actually like really squishy. So it doesn't need to be too bulky because we want to be able to have both of our hips on the ground. So you'll bend your left knee, and your left knee is roughly a 90-degree angle. So you can look at it, examine your left leg for a moment. You want your knee more or less at the height of your hip, and then you want your ankle in the same line or the same plane as your knee. And then you'll even have a light flex of your foot here. And so we're on our belly again, and it's normal for that left hip to lift off the ground here. You can keep your hands under your forehead, or you could open your arms wide like you're giving the earth a big old hug here. If you do that, you can choose which direction you want to turn your head. Kind of whichever one feels more intuitive. You can also bend your elbows like cactus if that feels best for your shoulders. I'm going to keep my hands stacked under my left ear here, my right ear. And so we'll just allow this gentle, gradual inner thigh stretch happen without any effort from us. It's all time and gravity doing the work of opening up our connective tissues. We just are along for the ride. Can the layers of armor start to come off, that sort of feeling, having to hold ourselves together, that composure, can that start to soften? From here, we'll travel our left leg back again and just notice the effects from that pose. Notice what feels open and spacious and light. What part of you feels calm? What part of you feels alive? So maybe it's the left leg feels alive. Maybe the right leg feels calm and heavy. And then if you are using a prop, you'll move it over to the right side, slightly off your mat, and we'll take time to do the right side now. So you'll pick up your right knee. You're going to bend your right knee And lightly flex your right foot. So the inseam of that inner knee and ankle are connected to the floor or connected to your prop, your padding, if you need padding. And then take a moment and look at your right knee. Make sure it's still roughly at the height of your right hip and your ankle is in the same plane as your bent knee. And then you can choose how you like to set up your arms. Maybe you take your arms in cactus, maybe you open them wide, maybe you keep the hands stacked under your head. And we'll stay here for a little bit of time, noticing the second side. Take one more breath here, inhaling fully. And then as you exhale, you'll unwind that right leg, slide it back and kind of recenter, pause, check in with yourself. Notice if there's any vibration or energy flowing through your body, up your leg, down your leg. From here, we will make our way up to hands and knees. So you'll take your hands under your shoulders, press yourself up to hands and knees. And again, you can pad under your knees as needed here. We'll take a moment to set up our palms. We'll take our fingers and spread them rather wide. You can have your hands like slightly turn out so the fingers point to the front two corners of the mat, or you could have your middle finger point straight ahead to the end of the mat. Hands are shoulder width, and then we'll just take a moment for cat-cow. Let your belly soften down, lift the eyes and tail up on the inhale. Let the exhale round your spine, curl the tail under and draw your knee, chin into your chest. We'll do this 3 more times. The next time you round your spine, stay rounded like a cat, and you're going to wag your hips right and left. So we're just kind of getting into like the sides of the waist a little bit. All right, we'll come to center and cross your right arm, bring it across your mat. So the right arm's going behind the left arm, and you'll take your right shoulder and right temple to the floor. Your hips are high, and you can keep your left hand where it is and kind of push into the ground with that left hand and help you twist a little bit more here. So we're getting into definitely putting pressure on our shoulders, and we're twisting that upper spine. So you do want to bear weight on your shoulder, but and only a little weight on your head. Now notice if your hips are swinging to one side, can you readjust so your hips are in the very middle of your mat over each knee? So your left hand can stay where it is, or you can take your left arm long to the front of the mat. And then the final option is to take your arm up to the ceiling, bend at your elbow, have the back of your hand rest on your sacrum. So we'll take a few breaths here. Let's take one more inhale. And then as you exhale, take the left hand back down to the floor. Use the strength of that left arm to bring yourself back up. And then find that gentle movement. It could be a cat-cow again, or anything like cat-cow. It could be kind of any kind of movements of your spine as you notice what opened up. And then we'll go to the second side. So for the second side, you're going to take your left arm across your mat. So the back, the left shoulder and left temple land on the floor. Hips are high. You can keep your right hand on the floor and push, or you can take your right arm to the top of the mat, or you can take your hand to your low back. And then recenter your hips over both knees. And we'll hang out here. We'll use our hand to press ourselves back up, and from there you can move the spine around however you like. And then after you notice that shift from that previous pose, you can swoop your legs to the side. You'll sit with your legs straight out in front of you. We'll do a little caterpillar pose. So caterpillar, your legs are about either hip width apart or no wider than mat width. So somewhere in there that feels natural. And then we'll take our pillow in front of us. Excuse me. All right. And so you have your pillow resting over your thighs or whatever props you would like to use in your forward fold. And then we'll just round in, softly drape our body over our legs. And then now that we're here, we're kind of testing the waters and deciding if this is the appropriate place to stay. Maybe you want to add or subtract props from here. Maybe you want to adjust your arms. So we were looking to find sensation of a stretch in the back of the legs and also in the back and even in the back of the neck. So we want to be mindful to let the head release. If you feel like your breath is escaping you, begin to deepen your breath. If you're working with scents, you know, a great way to work with your breath is just to breathe in the scent. So in my case, the orange scent. From our nice deep forward fold, we'll slowly and gently take our hands underneath us and slowly roll up through the spine. And you will be rolling down onto your back now. So if you would like to actually engage just your core like a little bit, it's good to do a little core engagement in our yin practice for balance. So how you can do that is you can scoot forward on your mat, so you have plenty of mat behind you. And it's like you're moving in slow motion next. And your belly will be putting on some brakes along the way. So you're gonna reach your arms out in front of you, and it's like your best friend is holding your hands and they're pulling you towards the front wall, but your core is pulling you back to the mat. So there's this really interesting opposition. And see if you can slow down and watch each vertebrae individually lower down to the floor. And once you lower down, you don't have to roll up again. We'll just stay down. We'll take another pose that's really, really nurturing, really restorative. It's one that's great if you can't sleep at night. It can be really helpful. Legs up the wall or We're going to do it on the mat in the middle of the room, no wall, so that's called waterfall pose. We do this one often together. So you'll plant your feet, bend your knees, find a prop, and then you'll bridge your hips up and you'll take that prop under the back of your hips. And then we'll bring our legs up in the air. And then you get to experiment with how you want your legs to be here. So the traditional way, your legs are straight up to the sky, your feet stacked directly over your hips. So there's this feeling of effortlessness, weightlessness in your legs. The thigh bone can sink back into the pelvis in such a way that you feel really supported here. If you don't feel supported, you can experiment with bending your knees. Now, there's another way you can approach this as well. You could let your legs sort of drop towards your face. And so what this does is it definitely will increase the hamstring stretch by a lot. And it can be a little intense, so just watch for your low back. If you feel like your low back is tensing up, stick to the first way we're doing this one. But otherwise, you can stay here and allow gravity to pull you into that hamstring stretch. So it's basically, we did that seated forward fold. You're basically doing it again, just on your back in this one. We'll take about 10 breaths here. Inhale in through your nose, exhale out through that straw. After your 10th breath, we'll just carefully bend the knees, set the soles of the feet down on the ground. We'll just take a pause for a moment. You can stay here with the soles of the feet on the floor. This is supported bridge pose. I'll give you a few other options instead of this pose. So another option could be butterfly. Soles of the feet together, knees open wide. And then the third option, only if it doesn't pull on your low back. We want it to feel good. You can elongate your legs. So there's a bit of an opening across the front of the pelvis here with that pillow behind our hips. You could even reach your arms back, or you could grab opposite elbows for really any variation you choose here, right? Anything you want to stay in for the next few moments. So we'll take a moment and reset. You'll bend your knees, plant your feet if they're not there already, and then you'll find your prop, bridge your hips up off your prop, move it off to the side, and then hug your knees into your chest, rocking. And then we'll roll over to the side. We're gonna do one more thing before we take our rest, and that is a breath practice. And I'm gonna sit a little closer to the camera so you can see better what's going down. But we're gonna do Nadi Shodhana. So it's alternate nostril breathing. It's so good to calm the nerves. It's something great to do like in the bathroom before maybe a big meeting or whatever big thing. Great way to settle the nerves. So we're going to take our right hand. This will be our right hand, and your peace fingers are going to rest on your third eye. So you'll have your two remaining fingers, your ring finger, pinky finger, and then your thumb, and you're going to alternate between your thumb and your last two fingers. Okay. So we have our thumb that will cover our right nostril, and then you'll have your ring pinky finger that will cover your left nostril, and you'll alternate back and forth. Now, if allergies are happening and it's really hard to breathe, no worries, just do the best that you can, okay? So let's go ahead and we're going to close off our right nostril with our right thumb, and you're going to inhale through your left nostril. And then you'll switch it. Close off your left nostril, exhale through your right nostril. Now inhale through your right nostril, close it off, exhale left. Inhale left, close, exhale right. Inhale right, close, exhale left. Inhale left, close, exhale right. You'll continue 4 more cycles of breath on your own. Once you complete those 4 breaths, you exhale out through your left nostril. You'll be done with this breath practice. And then you can remove your hand and notice what it feels like to breathe in for both nostrils. It's probably a lot easier. So we are going to make our way into our final pose, Shavasana. You can also do legs up the wall if you choose. So take a moment to settle in. You've gotten this far. Make it worth it. Get your props the way you like them so you can really enjoy your rest. So prop behind the head, prop under the knees as well, maybe legs long, maybe knees bent. You can also take that butterfly again if you choose. For grounding, you can rest your hands on your torso, Shavasana. We'll slowly gather our breath, letting the breath be a little more vibrant, a little more present. You can start to move in a gradual way, still honoring your rested state in Shavasana, but we'll come out of Shavasana gradually. So maybe that means interlacing your fingers back behind you, taking a full body stretch, lengthening your toes. And then once you find that stretch, you can fold your knees into your chest, rock from side to side with your low back against the floor. And then lastly, you'll roll to the side and make your way up to a seat. And we'll take a moment just to find our comfortable seat, the one that we arrived in. Notice how our seat might have shifted. So we might feel a little more of a rootedness, a little more relationship to the ground. Might have more of a relationship with our breath and our senses, right? Maybe you can feel a little bit more now that we've slowed down and gathered ourselves, brought ourselves back together with this practice. And just know whatever you feel is unique and valid. So when I'm feeling, if I feel a little grounded, that could be my own experience. You might feel lighter, or you're gonna feel all different things here. Bring your hands together at your heart, and we're gonna do one last little thing. So sometimes it's nice to dull the senses, especially if we're overstimulated. So you can warm your palms together, just like we're doing here, and then cover each eye socket with each palm. And we'll take 3 breaths together. Inhale fully. Exhale fully. Again, inhale. Exhale. Last breath, inhale. And then as you exhale, we'll just gently release our hands back down to the ground and bow to the earth. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share your practice. It is always an honor to serve you. Namaste.